With the death of Terry Bollea, also known as Hulk Hogan, I would say for the most part the wrestling community has reacted in quite a positive way. They've been pretty respectful for the most part. You do always going to get some idiots. There's always going to be people that are going to come off quite harsh and be a little unnecessary, and how they try and express themselves in relation to a lot of the controversy surrounding that's been surrounding Hogan for like from going back from like 2015 time, with that stuff with the tape, with the racist comments he made. But I think overall the wrestling community, it's been good. They've come together, they've paid proper tribute, showed respect, and it's been dealt with in the right proper way. Doing the 10 bell salutes on the shows in WWE was good. After a lot of pressure, AEW finally did pay tribute. It was, some might say it was half-assed. It was just a 1 minute deal, and it was Shivani who did it. It wasn't like a Tony Khan thing and everyone getting up on stage, doing 10 bell salute thing. But they paid tribute. They showed respect, and that was good to see. I've felt a certain way about Hogan for a long time, but look, we all have to be honest with ourselves that human life, it's sacred. It's nothing that, even if we have our enemies, have people that are against us, feel that people have wronged us, when someone's passed away, that, we show our proper respect, pay tribute, or else if we have nothing good to say, we just don't say anything at all. And I think that's the right way to handle things. You got to give CM Punk credit. He was there. He paid tribute. He was just very close. Just a couple people away from Hogan's son Nick, I believe, with Punk's T-shirt with the yellow. That was kind of a way of paying tribute with Hogan, obviously, always wearing the yellow trunks. So Punk's dealt with it properly. Fair play to Punk. Because Punk had his issues with Hogan. He wasn't a big Hogan fan. They did have a bit of a brief spat at one point on social media. So I give Punk credit. And there's other people there who maybe felt a certain way. There's going to be wrestlers, there's going to be African-American black wrestlers that might feel a certain way about Hogan. But I think everyone's been quite respectful and handled it the right way. Cody, got to give Cody credit. I'm not a huge fan of Cody Rhodes' character, but he handled it well in his promo as well on SmackDown. Overall, for me, I'm a guy, I started watching wrestling around 2000 time. I wasn't that familiar with Hulk Hogan. I watched WCW a little bit, but we always, there was the worldwide program. I think at that point when I started watching it, Hogan was no longer around. So that might have just been after the whole Bash at the Beach controversy. But I got into wrestling. I was a big fan of Rock. I was a big fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'd heard of Hogan. I understood he was a big deal. But I just didn't grow up in Hulk Hogan, so he wasn't really my guy. But when I really got a big understanding of how big of a deal that Hogan was the match against Rock at WrestleMania 18. Usually, when you're watching wrestling back then, the fans play their part accordingly. They boo for the heel, they cheer for the babyface. But obviously, at WrestleMania 18, Toronto Skydome, that wasn't the case. And the crowd was just bananas. It was incredible. What a reaction. Not a great match if you put the sound off, but with the crowd, just incredible. And that moment where he hulks up, they went fucking ballistic, And that was like the one moment where I realized, oh shit, they're cheating the heel here. They're not, and they're booing the babyface. I hadn't never really noticed it at that point before. But fond memories of that match. I think at the end, Hogan and Rock shaking hands. That was kind of an emotional moment. If you look at the referee, Mike Chioda, in the ring, he was very emotional seeing that. And I can understand for a lot of people. People see that as almost like the passing of the torch. It was an amazing moment, electric. He experienced it in the ring, the ref, Chioda, right there. Wow, it was, they put on quite a good match. Maybe they went out the window, the plan. They had to do things on the fly based on the crowd reaction. I don't know. But I think, overall it was good, and it just, Hogan. I remember even marking out for Hogan when he had that match. It was the tag match at Backlash, him and Michaels against Muhammad Hassan and Daivari. And even I was marking out for Hulk Hogan, and he wasn't my guy, and I'm like 14 at the time. So it was very infectious, that whole thing, that appeal with the character, larger than life, Hulkamania. A lot of good time memories there for people, but the people who grew up on Hogan, people who were like big Hulkamaniacs. You got people probably like Edge, who Hogan inspired to become a wrestler, and then Edge worked a little bit with Hulk Hogan. They actually won the tag titles, were tag champions very briefly. A lot of people Hogan inspired to enter the squared circle. Now, there is the controversial side, there is the dark side to Hulk Hogan. There is a lot of stuff. Now, if you watch the video Karma's Coming to Collect by Ultimate Warrior, he does expose a lot about the man Terry Bollea. And there was a lot of things I didn't like about Hogan. All the lies that he would tell, a lot of pathological lies, you could say, dark lies. I wasn't a big fan of that. Some might let him off the hook. They might just say it was just him and artistic liberty, embellishing things, that it was just part of the gimmick. To be that larger-than-life Hulk Hogan, you've got to kind of like just make things up, run a little wild, brother, with your imagination. But there was a bit of a side there of Hogan that I didn't like, and how he came off, and how sometimes it was unnecessary, how he'd take cheap shots at people. He did it a lot with the Warrior. He did it a lot with Randy Savage. It just seemed to be very kind of fake, passive-aggressive type like way he would speak, and I didn't particularly like that. But, we're all human. We all have our flaws. We all have our mistakes. I think you can forgive people with time if they change, if they show that they're sincere. I don't know with Hogan. Did Hogan fully change? I'd like to think that Hogan changed for the better, especially after all that controversy came out with the tapes and him using the N-word. I wouldn't like to think that was really Hogan. I just would like to think that he that wasn't him as a person, as a man. Hogan, might have just been a thing of just trying to get sympathy, though. You never know. Him going on that kind of tour apology, you had to go and apologize to all the, the wrestlers of color, met them backstage and stuff like that. And WWE was a lot of this just to clear his conscience and to be seen in a positive light again. Did he really mean it? I don't know. I mean, there was that controversy there with that whole beer company of like a black model who then got booted off or something. There was some questionable things there with Hogan. But Warrior and Savage, there were a lot of people who did hate Hogan, right? There's guys like Steiner, Ultimate Warrior had a lot of beef with him, Randy Savage. There just seemed to be a lot of guys that had this intense hatred towards Hulk Hogan. Bret Hart's another one. And it was like he did fuck over and screw over a lot of people. It felt like that. It was very calculated. It is that there's a dark side to the wrestling business. But, like when when people questioned why Hulk Hogan was the one to induct Randy Savage into the Hall of Fame, Lanny Poffo, because I guess he was part of it, he okayed that decision. He was like saying, well, look, in the end, Savage and Hogan probably loved each other. It was like a imperfect, in this imperfect world, you can love someone, but then you can also hate someone. And that is true. I think, I was so glad that Warrior made peace in the end with Hogan. That was good for them to just let things go at the end. That was just the right way to do things. And I think with Savage as well, maybe he didn't quite have that with Savage, but I think with some of these guys, maybe it was they felt hurt by Hogan, they felt betrayed by Hogan. Jesse Ventura was maybe another one as well, right? But there is that thing of like forgiveness, and you can forgive someone. And maybe that's a big thing. It was love and hate. They had a lot of good times, good moments, memories around Hogan. That was magic, like with the Mega Powers and, Hogan and Warrior, the chemistry they had in the ring. There can be that love-hate relationship you cultivate, you develop, that happens over time, I'd like to think Hogan changed for the better. I believe, he found Christ, he found God, he became born again. I'd like to think that was legit, and that was not just part of the gimmick of say your prayers, take your vitamins, and all that thing. That it was sincere. But overall, I think I would just to say yes, he was a very flawed man, Hogan, Terry Bollea. There was a lot of things I didn't like about him, but I think overall with him passing away, And shit, Hogan is the same age as my father, but Hogan, my dad wasn't a professional wrestler. I mean, Hogan, I suppose, to make it to 71, some might say that's quite good. It's still kind of a young age to go, but this guy had so many back surgeries, so many of all this stuff, and I imagine stuff was going to catch up with him eventually. But I think overall, I'd just like to pay tribute to Hogan. The wrestling business wouldn't have been what it became without Hulk Hogan. He's the immortal, the legendary Hulk Hogan, one of the best performers, the characters. I think Rock and Hogan definitely would go down. Some might not even just say as a top WrestleMania match of all time, but like a top like wrestling match of all time, going by crowd reaction and telling a story. So Hogan, I want to thank you for some memories that I had growing up with you. Like, I didn't really quite grow up with you, but watching some of the stuff you did when you were in WWE at the time. Thanks for the memories, Hogan, and rest in peace. But that's just my thoughts on that, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers.